Okay, so Nick Hume from Calcutt Matthews. We're in Ashford in Kent on the Eurostar line. Um, Firm was formed 21 years ago now. I started out with Deloitte, working in London and Los Angeles, had a lovely time, but realised I was never going to want to make partner there. It was, I didn't hobnob enough. I didn't want to push myself that hard, and end up divorced and in a right mess, because that's what seemed like all the partners I worked for were in. They earned a lot of money, but they weren't necessarily, it wasn't where I wanted to go. So I moved to like a very small office of a top 20 firm and just learned how to do tax returns and small company accounts for about 8 years, and then got totally ripped off by the partnership I was in effectively. I think I earned about 20 grand the year I left, and got married, and I decided I need to set up on my own. For 5 years, I had a fantastic consultancy contract and earned about 150,000 a year. I was very happy. And that came to an end because the government contract had to re-tender. And so suddenly I was running a paper bag kind of accountancy firm with 3 staff and about 38 grand a year. And it was 5 a.m. to 5 p.m. I used to start really early so I could be home for dinner with the young family I had at the time. I did that for 4 years, and then I got a letter from AVN that sounded a bit enticing, because I was just, this is not what I signed up for. I was considering joining HMRC and getting a nice pension or something like that, but it was very hard work, and I just wasn't great at it either, I would have said, if you want me to be honest.
Okay, thank you for that. Appreciate it. So just tell us a little bit more then. I mean, I think you've covered my first couple of questions off quite nicely. So let's just leap forward to where you are now. What by contrast does that look like?
Yeah. So we joined AVN in 2008, and we've obviously done 12, 13 years now with AVN, and made an absolute transformation, certainly to my earnings and the time that I have with the family now. I work 4 days. Pretty much nobody in the firm works full time. Actually, we all kind of part timers really, but it works great. I probably earn about the same as I would do in Deloitte right now, just frankly from getting things right. And I've sort of highlighted 3 points I've written down here as to what I did financially to move things on when I joined AVN. Shall I go through those, Shane?
If you don't mind, that'd be wonderful. Yeah. Thank you.
So the first thing I had to do, because I was earning, I'd say about 38,000 when I first met AVN, was I was like, I've got to afford these fees, and how am I going to make this pay? And of course, when we first did initial class, it was like, well, how much more could you make out of this, and this? And I figured out how I could cover the fees. And within 3 months, I think I'd actually paid AVN, covered AVN, and still was earning that money. And then for the next 9 months, I think I went to the stage where I went from about 38,000 to about 150,000 by just increasing fees, and doing direct debits, seminars, structured pricing for tax advice, that kind of thing. And it was a complete transformation. It really was. We moved to a bigger office, took on new staff, and probably I took on too many staff, to be absolutely honest. My team grew considerably from like 4 to about 13, 14 in about 3 or 4 years. But every time I found someone really good, I took them on. And that kind of kept my earnings sort of, okay-ish. But yeah, I think within about 4 years of joining AVN, I was certainly very comfortable, back to doing 4 days a week, a lot of time with the family, very satisfied with the practice. What we've done in the last 5, 6 years is just move from being happy like that to actually working on the team, because I think as your First Lady speaker said, the biggest thing you can do in the long run, once you've mastered all those things, is you've got to get the team right. And for me, and I think initially I was very motivated, and my team kind of got AVN, but when I started putting them on masterclass and involving them with other members, and then also developing our own team culture, I think that's what really, really made the difference for us. And then I wasn't probably the best, team leader in the world. I wasn't necessarily brilliant at motivating teams. So I had to learn a lot from AVN style methods like Team Matters and some of those principles, but also reading books about how to manage a team and all kinds of different personalities you'll get. And we use things like Myers-Briggs to work out personality profiles of team members, but also clients as well, so we can match people in our certain departments in the certain way that they work together. And then also I then have to learn how I actually encourage somebody of a particular personality type. And I never understood that for years, I think. But as soon as I got that, then I think that made a huge transformation for the actual kind of culture in the team as well. And we've obviously had team meetings from day one. We've had a Monday meeting for the whole team pre-lockdown. Now we have a whole team meeting on Zoom for 15-20 minutes every day. And then we have monthly team meetings where I, as a boss, suddenly started to give up some of the things that I would have just made a decision on myself, but actually said, no, the team can decide that now. And I think they're just cultural things that AVN taught me to do. And I honestly would say, yeah, I probably tripled my earnings since I've learned that the team is really important. And it's they that have got to be incredibly motivated and love working with you. And that, of course, suddenly changes you, because you go from somebody who slightly resents the fact that they didn't really put in a great day's work sometimes, to actually somebody who's much more forgiving and understanding, but motivates them. And everybody feels really like we're pulling together here and we're pushing things, not just financially, but a lot of times it's just about the enjoyment, the culture, and what we're doing with a client as well, which is fantastic. Everybody gets really excited when a client, goes through the roof in terms of what they're doing as well, and then clients, actually are so much more sticky, because it's not just me telling them that. It's like from the receptionist up, they all feel like they're sharing that journey. So yeah, it works great. Yeah.
Brilliant. Okay, look, I'd love to I often ask an accountant, what would happen if you were to get hit by a bus and you were just incapacitated for the next 6 months? How would your business survive? And most people say it probably wouldn't. But you almost got hit by the equivalent of a bus, didn't you? In that you were struck by COVID long and were pretty much out of action for some time. Just tell us about that and how you practice codes.
Yeah, no, you're quite right, Shane. Yeah, I wasn't hospitalised or anything, but literally a year ago, I was in bed, very sick with it, and I did go to hospital once I was over it, and I got a confirmation I'd had COVID, because at the time there's no testing, was there? But yeah, all I would say is immediately from day one, the team just jumped in, and I've got a co-director who's Mike, who's in his early 40s, he's been with the 18 years now, and he just took it on that he was going to make sure everybody was looked after. And for a couple of 3 weeks, I must admit, I wasn't at all well, but after about a day and a half, I realised the team had got it, and that was wonderful, because there wasn't one client that felt like they had lost, my resource. That was covered. I think my PA made a fantastic job of laying it on really thick with clients that was really ill. and so I've had lots of clients say, I hear you nearly died. But that was just her fending them off from, making sure they didn't insist on trying to speak to me, which was really appreciated as well. So yeah.
Okay. Listen, what questions do you have, people? Just while those questions might be coming in, just what kind of piece of advice would you give people out there, the people listening to this session right now, in terms of just starting to turn their practice around? I know that, I think everyone on here, maybe the exception, are working with AVN right now. So, from your point of view, what would be the one piece of advice?
I think the biggest thing you've got to do is, if you're newly starting out, as I was, I actually had spare capacity to do AVN, and I actually ruled out in my diary, as I think we're all told to do, half a day every Thursday. I didn't work Friday, but Thursday morning, I actually completely, well, in fact, it was the whole of Thursday for a while, for the first year, I think, and then I moved to just Thursday mornings, and it was completely AVN. I had the capacity to do that, and I think it's incredibly important that you devote the time. That you can guarantee you'll go on a wonderful course, or something like this, and think, oh, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that, and then the next morning a client rings you at 9 a.m. and they want this and this and this, and the next thing is you've moved it to Tuesday next week. That becomes never. So I think you've totally got to block that out. Tell the whole team and your clients that you're not available then to do that. If you're full of clients now, you've actually got to kick some out, take somebody on to deal with those, just so that you do that. Because without that, you'll never get there. And I think that's the only time I've ever seen members never get there, is when they fail to do that. They love the idea, they love the camaraderie of AVN, I think, but doesn't get there.
Okay, two questions. One is from Libby earlier, so she wanted this asking for everybody. So, do you niche? Do you have a specific niche, or several, or just an ideal client that covers any industry?
So we do charities. We do actually do our ICP, our ideal client profile, is owner managed business, £1 million turnover plus, ideally now. It used to be about £250,000, to be honest. But the idea was they made a profit of about 50k minimum when we first started working with them as a business growth client. I must admit, we started as starters that had got no money, and it was desperately hard because they couldn't afford to pay for any advisory. So we started with 50k with an objective that within 12 months we'd get them to, in the first meet, to agree to something like 150 or 250 profit within 12 to 24 months. And so we love working with those kind of clients. And the main thing is of course, as soon as they start making so much more money, they so love you, and they're very willing to, take on any advice and charge rate that you suggest. And it's a transparent charge rate, don't get me wrong. But yeah.
Good stuff. Okay, I've got less than a minute and two questions. So question one is, what was the first action that made the biggest difference to start with?
It was direct debits and pricing. Yeah, got to do that. You've got to do that. Yeah.
Spot on. And then the last one on here, and by the way, whoever that is still down as Victoria Walton. So if you rename yourself, that'd be great. But how many team members do you have, and how long was it before you could say that they were all an A+ team?
Yeah, we've got full-time equivalent of about 12. We've actually got 18 on the payroll, but because of the part-time nature, I would have said I didn't push the team thing for the first 4 years. You could do it much earlier, but I would have said literally by year 5 that was the most important thing in our firm. Yeah.
Excellent. Listen, everybody, Nick, you've been absolutely fantastic. Please join me in the chat box by thanking Nick. Really appreciate the openness and the willingness to share all of your insights. You're an absolute star. Thank you very much.
Thank you.